As a psychiatrist, I think I spend more time talking about radical acceptance than just about any other coping skill I know of. It can apply to so many different situations, and right now might just be the perfect time to practice a little bit. The problem is that people don't understand the nature of the radical part. I think most of us naturally believe that acceptance of a situation means not letting it bother us, or making the situation less painful or disturbing. And when it comes to radical acceptance, nothing could be further from the truth. The story I want to tell you now may be a little disturbing to some people, but I think it really explains what I mean by radical acceptance. I remember when I was working with a parent who had lost a very young child in a very unfortunate accident. By the time I started working with them, it was 8 years later. One of the reasons that they sought my help was because their other child, who was now a teenager, was struggling with significant depression, suicidal thoughts, and self-injury, and my patient felt helpless to help their teen and was now struggling with their own serious anxiety and depression. As I got to know the patient more and more, what became absolutely clear was that he had never moved past the death of his first child. And note that I said move past, not get over, because this is an important distinction. He had not moved past the trauma, which had severely impacted his relationship with his surviving child. Even though he was aware of this on a certain level, when I began to suggest the importance of radical acceptance, moving beyond this tragedy that had held him back for so many years, his immediate and understandable response was, "You're telling me to accept the death of my child, and this is something I will never, ever do." This is a perfectly understandable reaction. But it's also a failure to understand the actual meaning of radical acceptance. He was thinking that he had to somehow be okay with the tragedy, that it wasn't supposed to bother him anymore. But over the next few sessions, he began to understand that the point was to move forward, to work on those things that one has the ability to work on and change, rather than being stuck focusing on something that they absolutely cannot change. For the past 8 years, so much of his energy had been focused on the death of his child that he was ineffectual at focusing or working on those things he still could change, such as his relationship with his living child. I sometimes describe it to my patients by asking them to imagine that they are on their way to an extremely important interview or a meeting that might have a great impact on their life or well-being, when suddenly they find themselves in this valley in the middle of nowhere with a flat tire and no cell reception. Now, it's clear there's no way they're going to make it to this meeting on time. One reaction is to simply despair or lose hope or scream at the unfairness of it all. And for a short period of time, this may even make some sense. But there are other options available. It's just that getting to the meeting on time, that's not one of them. So after taking a few deep breaths and some gnashing of teeth, they decide better to be late than never, and they go to get out the spare tire only to find that it too is flat. And it wouldn't be that surprising for them to just sit down and completely give up hope at this point. After all, it's all over now. And as far as the meeting is concerned, this is true. That boat has sailed. But it doesn't mean that you can't still do something, still be effective at some level. At the very least, you need to get up and get walking. Eventually, you'll find cell service and salvage what you can. But the alternative is to sit down by the car and go nowhere. In the case of my patient, this is essentially what had happened. But over time, he came to realize that radical acceptance was not about getting over his grieving or his pain. It was about not letting it paralyze him indefinitely. Radical acceptance is about recognizing those options or choices we do have and focusing our energy there rather than on the things that we can't change. Radical means just that. Not becoming entrenched in our intense emotions so as not to be blinded by our existing options. What it does not mean is forgetting these feelings or pain. For my patient, who is now doing very well and has forged a much better relationship with their child, this didn't mean forgetting their loss or feeling that loss, but it was about being able to grieve, to love, to miss that child and still be happy and connected with his living offspring. It meant understanding that the grief and pain he had harbored for so long was not affecting what happened 8 years ago, but it was having a profound effect on those around him who still needed him. Radical acceptance is not a new concept. Alcoholics Anonymous has the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Some of us remind ourselves, it is what it is. Even the person with his head in the guillotine facing the absolute inevitable can still decide how they want to react in their last few seconds of life. Now that's truly radical acceptance. Listen, if you find this helpful, please like and subscribe. I'm Dr. Vint Blackburn, and remember, mental health and physical health, they're the same thing.